the Trump administration released a test review kind of filled with just crazy pseudoscience and misunderstandings on trans people. I wanted to run through the Trump review, as it were, in order to, I guess, see what exactly they're saying about people like me, and maybe offer a counterpoint. Number one, just like keeping myself informed, keeping y'all informed, because it's fucking scary out there, y'all. But we don't win anything by sticking our heads in the sand, unfortunately, as much as I wish that it were that easy. Things are not going to get better unless we know what's going on, and we fight against it, which does suck. I wanted to go over the Aaron in the Morning fact check on the HHS review and the Trump review. Aaron Reed claiming it's full of pseudoscience, pushing conversion therapy. Crazy that we still need to, like, go over stuff like this. With all of this misinformation being spread about trans people, ultimately, the misinformation is going to get corrected. It's just going to take a lot of time and energy. I think generally normal people are pretty supportive of trans folks. Or at least don't care. It's kind of weird to care as much as this. Unless you're trans. Which, like, I'm not allowed to make calls like that. On Thursday, May 1st, the Trump administration's Department of Health and Human Services, now helmed by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his brainworm, released a report masquerading as science, but serving as a blunt instrument of ideological warfare against transgender youth. Commissioned under Trump's January 28th executive order, the report's conclusions were preordained, its framing designed to validate a political agenda rather than present credible research. It names no authors, has no peer-reviewed processes, and bears no hallmarks of legitimate scientific inquiry, just a faceless document no one was willing to claim. Among its recommendations, conversion therapy for trans youth, the reclassification of social transition as a medical treatment, and an absurd assertion that transgender care should be judged not by patient well-being or satisfaction, but by employability and the presence of romantic partners. At more than 400 pages, the document is poised to draw a wave of fact checks and scientific rebuttals. The American Academy of Pediatrics has already issued a sharp condemnation, calling it inaccurate, misleading, and a distortion of the current medical consensus. This fact check won't capture every falsehood in the report, there are hundreds, but it will examine some of its most egregious and harmful pseudoscientific claims. Before delving into the document's most egregious factual distortions, it's worth emphasizing that it has no listed author and bears none of the hallmarks of scientific rigor. There is no evidence of peer review. Instead, the report reads less like a medical analysis and more like an anti-trans screed, politicized, inflammatory, and devoid of scholarly grounding. Tellingly, transgender researchers have already unearthed EXIF data embedded in the file, revealing that the document's compilers include Alex Byrne, an anti-transgender philosophy major, and 2 political consultants, not scientists, and certainly not experts in gender-affirming care. That said, regardless of their backgrounds, their assertions can and should be challenged. You are allowed to say whatever you like. You are protected from retaliation against the things that you say by the government. Or at least you usually are, unless you tweet angry at a executive. Calling them MFs and FMs, insane. I am gonna, okay, I'm gonna say right now, single issue voters are naive. You need to get a wider perspective, and also you're wrong. I will debate abortion with you if you want. I will tell you exactly why you're wrong. But that's, I don't think, what you want to get into here. I think it ultimately it is naive to vote for any political candidate based on only one perspective. Especially if that perspective is the right of a woman to do what they want with their body. In the meantime, I'm going to continue. Claim: transgender healthcare should be judged based on how unemployed a person is or how many romantic partners they have. Fact: transgender healthcare, like all medical care, is judged according to the impact it has on patient health as well as patient satisfaction with the care received. From page 47 of the Trump Review, on the other hand, while the self-reported subjective outcomes were good, objective measures told a different story. 1 in 7 MFs and 1 in 36 FMs had attempted suicide after treatment began. Of the total number of patients seen in the previous 10 years, 3 had committed suicide after treatment. 60% of the MFs and 37% of the FMs were unemployed, and 59% and 33% had no romantic partners. Commenting on previous studies of the SRS, the researchers noted it is possible to discern a trend in these reports. Okay. Insane. Just absolutely insane thing to say on the surface. Not going at all into why these people might have committed suicide, why they might have attempted suicide, for literally a litany of other reasons that might not be tied to their transgender identity, or maybe because they're being treated like shit because of their transgender identity by the people around them. That's crazy. It's crazy to me when the solution to a bunch of people are feeling like total shit enough to kill themselves, the solution that's being posited is not let's stop being such a bunch of assholes to them and like maybe understand even a little bit about their experience, but instead they must be committing suicide because they're trans, and definitely not because of the things that there was the discussion that we had last stream about how I personally believe that Christian faith, especially just because it's the predominant one that I have like experience in and I can criticize, and you know, it's the basis of American society one way or another, as Puritans building a society that they wanted to be in. It discourages introspection because it is better to just have faith. It's a very useful tool for people that want to keep you oppressed. Not saying that religion doesn't have a purpose. Outside of that, I'm not saying people can't worship whatever they want. I'm saying that unfortunately, right now, religion is being used as a tool to oppress people. I don't have any problem with personal religious practices. I do have a lot of problems with organized religion, I guess. It's power, right? It's all about power. Especially Christianity, it's about power. Very early in the review, the unnamed reviewer must contend with the fact that gender-affirming care has high satisfaction rates. In recent years, many reports have emerged showing high levels of satisfaction and low levels of detransition for transgender people. A recent report in the 2022 U.S. Transgender Survey shows that out of 90,000 transgender people, less than 1% report feeling less satisfied after beginning gender-affirming hormone therapy, with the vast majority feeling a lot more satisfied. Detransition appears to be similarly rare. One recent study out of Australia found complete data on 548 of 552 transgender patients and discovered only 1% of transgender youth detransitioned over several years before being transferred to adult services. Another study showed that transgender youth are stable in their gender identity 5 years after transitioning, with only 2.5% re-identifying as their assigned sex at birth. Even the CAS review found less than 10 detransitioners out of the 3,000 trans youth active patients or waiting list patients in England. The detransition and dissatisfaction rate for transgender care is remarkably low, and we have years and years of research on this. The numbers that they give for a lot of these things are just wrong. They don't want you to reckon with the fact that a normal surgery has like a 15% regret rate. It's because the checks for transgender care are so rigorous, and they give you so much information, and they give you so much detail, that by the time you're actually doing anything serious to your body, you have so much time and information to make your own decision that it's very difficult for somebody who's not happy to receive care and then stay unhappy with that care for any length of time. Ultimately, gender-affirming care is about how things feel, right? It's something that's very personal. Everybody has a different experience with gender. what they want to be, and like how that interacts with with society and the societal views of what gender is, of what the genders are. I find it very ridiculous that this much evidence is out there, but people choose to not look at it, or are being, willfully ignorant. Anti-transgender activists have long struggled to rebut the high satisfaction rates reported by those who receive gender-affirming care, and the authors of this report are no exception. Unable to discredit those numbers directly, the reviewer pivots instead, arguing that satisfaction is irrelevant because objectively transgender people are doing poorly. The evidence, a single 1988 study, nearly 40 years old, claiming that 60% of male to female and 37% of female to male transitioners were unemployed and many lacked romantic partners. These are held up as objective measures. It is important to note that all of these potential outcome measurements may be heavily influenced by transphobic sentiments in society, especially in 1988. Should transgender people be judged on their ability to be employed or their romantic partners? Their own discrimination may then be used against their ability to access medication. According to the Advocates for Transgender Equality, more than 1 in 4 transgender people have lost a job due to bias, and 3/4 report experiencing workplace discrimination. Therefore, it is inaccurate to blame transgender people and their medication for what appears to be an issue with societal discrimination. I think that is a very, very good point. I can't say for sure, right? I'm never going to be able to claim for sure and like have a case that the reason I got canned was because of discrimination, right? But it is a little crazy that as soon as the person who always gave me weird looks in the bathroom got in charge of my department, I was gone. Listen, I made mistakes, right? I screwed up a couple times, but I was literally in the middle of working with my manager to fix them. And from what I saw, my manager, they went right over his fucking head. He was willing to work with me. I'd already complained once. That might have been my downfall, right? Is like opening my mouth one time. Somebody in the orientation for work, and we're talking workplace discrimination, right? I definitely felt that one. Because in the orientation for work, one of the people in the orientation, not only did the person in the orientation dead name me, but the person running the orientation dead named me, but another person who was taking the class just said some blatantly transphobic shit, while looking right at me. So, like it doesn't bother me as much as maybe it might affect somebody else, but it still affects me, and obviously it affects my career prospects. It's harder to like receive a job in the first place as a trans person, because everybody that goes to hire you has to like reckon with, do I want a trans person on my staff? Is it gonna cause more problems than it's worth? And that fucking sucks. It shouldn't be a judgment that somebody has to have just to get a job. The idea that transgender people are unreasonably or suspiciously happy in the face of poor actual life circumstances has a long history in the mistreatment of transgender people. In 1979, conservative activist Dr. Paul McHugh abruptly ended gender-affirming surgeries at Johns Hopkins. He based the decision on a study that judged the effectiveness of transition with employment status, legal difficulties, and entering into relationships. Notably, points were deducted for transgender people entering into gay relationships. Incredible. Surgeries have since restarted, with Hugh's history being described as a long shadow cast on Johns Hopkins Hospital. Claim European countries are pulling back on transgender healthcare. The talking point that Europe is pulling back on transgender care is now thoroughly outdated. In fact, several European nations have moved in the opposite direction. France, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland have all released recent reports that directly contradict the rationale behind documents like the Cass Review and this freshly released Trump administration review. But remember, everyone doing this, everyone who does this, Everyone who does this to people, who is advocating for this kind of legislation, who is writing and administering these kind of reports, everybody who is doing this, taking these evil actions to repress minorities and limit their access to healthcare and life-saving medicine, they all have names, they all have faces, and they do all have addresses. Just saying. It's important to remember these things. In recent years, US politicians have selectively framed European healthcare policies to justify restrictions on transgender care, seizing on a handful of conservative policies to claim that Europe is pulling back. The most extreme example, United Kingdom's Cass Review, has been wielded to justify a near total ban on puberty blockers and even cited in US Supreme Court arguments. This document makes a similar argument, claiming that European countries, starting in 2020, began reversing course on gender-affirming healthcare, with the culmination of such reversals being the Cass Review. This claim is just no longer true. Since the Cass Review's release, numerous European countries and medical associations have actually changed course. In December 2024, the French Society of Pediatric Endocrinology and Diabetology released a groundbreaking national medical consensus on transgender youth care. Importantly, the French guidelines are now recommend in favor transgender youth care, denounce a wait-and-see approach for transgender adolescents, and promote individualized care for every transgender patient, a stark contrast with the Trump HHS review. Similarly, new medical guidelines from Germany, Austria, and Switzerland reaffirmed the importance of gender-affirming care for transgender youth and issued sharp critiques of the Cass Review, calling out its severe methodological flaws and misrepresentations the Trump HHS review shares. The Trump HHS review acknowledges these updated European guidelines but dismisses them as merely sparking considerable debate. It makes no effort to engage with their findings point by point. Instead, it glosses over their conclusions, deriding them as products of WPATH, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, and falsely claiming they are not evidence-based. In reality, these guidelines are backed by extensive, unbiased citations, the endorsement of major medical organizations, and transparent authorship, none of which can be said of the Trump HHS review. I think that genuinely, like, reviews like this in the Cass review are gonna, be the amount of effort that's gonna go into debunking them genuinely might outstrip the effort put to spread misinformation. The only people that are getting fooled are stupid people, and we just kind of have to hope that there aren't as many stupid people. Which I know maybe that's a shallow hope, but I would like to believe that people aren't stupid. Australia just finished their elections. That's good. I don't actually know anything about Australian politics. I know that the Liberals won in Canada, which is awesome, citing pretty much Trump for their swing to victory. Claim transgender people may actually just be gay, and transitioning is a form of conversion therapy. In fact, gender and sexuality are different. Many transgender people identify as gay or bisexual after transition, and gay acceptance is higher than trans acceptance. Apparently ignored was the related possibility that transition may appeal to young gay men and lesbians suffering from social disapproval of their homosexuality. Do you really think that somebody, genuinely, do you really think somebody who is, suffering from societal, disapproval of their homosexuality would decide to fucking transition about it? Yeah, I'm getting hated on for being gay, so why don't I just go do something way worse for my social standing? When you become trans, and this is something that I don't know a lot of people, you probably hear about it, but when you come out as trans, it changes your life, completely. Because everybody has an opinion on it. And they're going to make it your problem. You don't get to just be okay, you can't, most of the time you can't just say you're trans and then have it be fine, right? Everybody's like, yeah, cool, whatever. That's just not the way it works. Yeah, it adds to it, exactly. And now people are, people are hyper aware of, how feminine or masculine you are, or act, or look, or present, right? This is a frustratingly stupid point. Never once felt like your decision to transition was social pressure. Absolutely. It's something you want for yourself, and it has to be. With this, again, and I mentioned this earlier, with the amount of, things that you have to change, you have to want it. You have to want it. Like, it took a lot. There was the last discussion that I had with my parents was them being frustrated that I hadn't told them earlier. And the answer is just that I was scared because I genuinely don't know how people will react. I think it's really fucking scary to tell people that. I mean, fuck, it cost me my relationship, at least in part. No matter how okay somebody says they are with it, it doesn't change the fact that my partner cried when I told her that I was trans the first time. And, like, I don't blame her for that, but it hurts, right? Everything changes. It's just genuinely stupid and frustrating to say that somebody would choose that over just, like, being gay. People are way more okay with gay people now. The decision to not transition is a social pressure, absolutely. People try to hold you in place because they think they know better than you. I think that's maybe the most frustrating part, is that so many people is that everybody has an opinion on it, and you are clearly too stupid to have formed an opinion on your own. It took me like 3 years to decide I wanted to change my gender from male to political. True. My ex-wife was straight up like, I don't think you're a woman, and asked me a whole bunch of questions about it, like, well, what do you think a woman is, and why do you want to be one? Like, she was upset when I brought up the notion of being trans. That actually happened to me as well. I was interrogated on all of the reasons that, like, I wanted to be a woman and what I felt like a woman was, and then she eventually told me that I believe she, like, originally was like, I don't think that this is the right thing because my expectations of being a woman were too shallow. It's the burden of other people's thoughts, absolutely. People all have a fucking opinion on it. It can't ever just be your decision. It has to be, like, of course you have to be, like, you're influenced by something else, or somebody's making you do it, or you're just been tricked, or, like, it can't possibly be that you're making an educated decision. It must be some fucking conspiracy. Lots of women we know freak out at the idea that someone wants to be a woman, usually from folks that don't like womanhood or even might transition if they didn't cut themselves off from the idea. Absolutely. The claim that transgender people are actually just gay is one that has been made repeatedly by those opposed to gender-affirming care, and one that has been repeatedly debunked. The claim is that people transition for social exceptions, a claim that stretches credulity given differential exceptions of gay and transgender people. To be fair, I was watching a lot of TikTok videos at the time that kind of made me think about it more. Well, I mean, listen, first of all, the TikTok algorithm is very, very good at giving you exactly what you're interested in, and even if you don't want to think about it, the algorithm probably knows. Yeah, people talking about it online, it's you didn't have the words for your experience. That's education, right? It's just people talking about this stuff gives you the words to define an internal experience that is difficult to explain. There are more tactful ways I could say this, but the gist of it was spending a lot of time being like, would I be putting a target on my back? Is this a target I want to put on my back? Absolutely. I was one of, like, when I came out, I was pushed to come out to a large group of people, because pressure. I'm not going to get into it, but one of the groups I came out to was my D&D group, and someone in the D&D group told me, like, are you sure you're not just a feminine man? Are you sure you're not just non-binary? And, like, it's like, yeah, bitch, I fucking thought about it a little bit. Like, it's not just a decision I'm making randomly. Like, why would I come to something like this and just to say that that's what I want to do? There's so much, like, they don't give you any credit for, like, the fact that you might be able to make an educated decision with evidence. The target on the back is what scares. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary to be trans in a world that actively hates trans people, and that's the thing is that's part of what they want, right? They're doing this to make you feel scared. They're doing this to push you back into the closet because they don't care about what happens to you. They just want to stop seeing and thinking about you. Which ultimately means pushing trans people back in the closet or eradicating them. Which is, you know, a big G word. The general rule of thumb is that if you just hear someone transitioned, those first questions doubting it are absolutely ones already considered. Absolutely. It's so frustrating. You're not making life choices exactly the way I would. That can't be right. Exactly. People have an opinion about it. About something that really isn't like something that needs an opinion. Like, I'm not asking for your opinion. I think I said this to my parents, right, when I came out. It's like, I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm not asking for, like, judgment on this. I'm already doing it. I've been taking hormones for years, and you're not stopping me. I want you to know. Alright. The claim is a trivial transition for social acceptance, a claim that stretches credulity given differential exceptions of gay and transgender people. This is not born out of factual research and common sense LGBTQ plus prevalence among transgender people. Attitudes towards transgender people tend to be significantly more negative, according to an article in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. This contributes to a much higher rate of violence and discrimination. Many transgender people, such as celebrity Laverne Cox, report that the most common response to coming out is, "Couldn't you just been gay?" According to the 2012 National Transgender Discrimination Survey, most transgender people identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or queer after transition. If transition was being used to cure being gay, it is a startlingly ineffective one. Yeah, building community is important. Building local community, especially like in your local area. I know it's not super easy sometimes. Some people don't have that good fortune. I tried a gay man relationship once. Now we're both trans women. Yeah, right. There's so much misogyny and homophobia all tied up in transphobia. Transmisia has been on the up and up, right? Like, people are using transmisia because a lot of people piss on their shit in their pants. Like, I'm not afraid of trans people, even though they are. An attitude, belief, behavior, policy that stigmatizes or harms trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people. But Misia is, like, it highlights the hatred that they have for the identity, right? Vocab Day with April. Every day with me is Vocab Day. I hope that you come away from conversations with me knowing new things. It's the same thing, right? It just it highlights the hatred that they have for the identity rather than like the fear of the identity, which kind of, I feel like it also centers blame on the person rather than like an irrational fear, right? Phobias are irrational, but Mizzy is targeted and purposeful. Yeah, that idea, basically. It means essentially the same thing. I'm not afraid of you, I just hate you and want you to die. Exactly, you're not transphobic, you're just transmissive. Alright, claim transgender youth are more common today because of mass social contagion, and transgender people are experiencing rapid onset gender dysphoria. Transgender people often know about their gender identity for years before coming out, which can appear rapid. The increase in recent years is not due to contagion, a discredited theory, but rather increased social acceptance of transgender people. In several instances, the report pushes a rapid onset gender dysphoria and social contagion as potential reasons for the apparent increase in transgender individuals in recent years, raising concerns that these individuals will detransition. A letter from over 60 psychological organizations, the Coalition for the Advancement and Application of Psychological Science, calls for the elimination of the term, stating, "There are no sound empirical studies of ROGD, and there is no evidence that ROGD aligns with the lived experiences of transgender children and adolescents." A study in the prestigious Journal of Pediatrics entirely debunked the concept of ROGD, determining that most transgender people know their identity for years before they come out and seek treatment for gender dysphoria. When transgender people finally do come out, many are overjoyed to finally reveal their true self to the world around them. To others, however, the process may seem rapid. To ascertain whether transgender identification occurs rapidly, researchers directly asked transgender teenagers, "How long have you known you were transgender?" They discovered that on average, transgender people know their identity for 4 years before first coming out and presenting for treatment. Rapid onset self-discovery and acceptance, right? It's so terrible for them. Well, of course, you gotta remember, this entire thing, it's the tone of it too, right? Is that they think of transgenderness as a disease, as something bad, something to avoid, like a disorder in your brain. Something is wrong with you, and they need to fix it. And that is not only a result of the widely harmful practices and stigmatization that we have of mental health, in especially the United States. Yeah, my favorite disease makes me feel cute and pretty, right? But it's a misunderstanding of transness. In the early 1900s, the rates of left-handedness hovered between 3 and 4%. Left-handedness rates then skyrocketed to 12% where it has leveled off ever since. This was, of course, not caused by a massive social contagion of left-handedness. Rather, increases in acceptance led to people feeling more comfortable using their left hand. In the 1940s, anti-left-handedness researcher Abram Blau decried the cultural influences of left-handedness and the progressive campaigns of allowing the child to be free to choose the side for himself. In an article released in 1979, Dr. Bernard McKenna said of the growth of left-handedness, "We used to call everybody a deviant who didn't conform. We just eventually learned better. There was recognition by medical authorities that left-handedness was normal, and that tying the hand up in a child often caused stuttering." Sound familiar? You could see the growth in left-handedness here. But yeah, it's survivorship bias, right? I don't know if you've seen the survivorship bias. Obviously, I think a lot of people have seen this image specifically. You know, if planes, you know, they had a bunch of planes coming back from battle, and they recorded all of the places that the planes had gotten shot. You know, the natural solution is to reinforce the places they've been shot at, but that misses the point that the planes that didn't come back are the ones that got shot in other places that are not recorded here. So actually, these are more or less the safe places to get shot. Yeah, exactly. So, like, when you see things like transgender acceptance getting raised in general society, you start seeing more trans people because they're actually able to be there to give you data. There were less before because they were either in hiding or dead. Exactly. It would be like seeing this and then blaming the pilots. Well, I guess it'd be like blaming the plane. The plane's woke, and that's why all the pilots exploded. They did take out the load-bearing DEI in the planes, and that did make them start crashing, so I don't know. Claim: psychiatric care for transgender youth is not conversion therapy. Conversely, conversion therapy to treat gender dysphoria can work. Fact: conversion therapy is enormously harmful for transgender youth, and psychotherapy alone has never been shown as an effective in curing gender dysphoria. The review flounders when attempting to present viable alternatives to gender-affirming care, chief among them psychotherapy. There is no comprehensive evidence that talk therapy alone can treat gender dysphoria. On the contrary, the documented harms of conversion therapy are extensive. LGBTQ+ youth subjected to it are more than 2.5 times as likely to report multiple suicide attempts in the past year. The report attempts to have it both ways, insisting that psychotherapy for gender dysphoria isn't conversion therapy, while also suggesting in the same breath that conversion therapy, psychotherapy, or psychiatric care in the report might actually be effective in curing gender dysphoria. The report leans heavily on the favorite approach for anti-transgender activists called gender exploratory therapy, a new type of conversion therapy with a misleading name which seeks to persuade transgender individuals that their gender identity stems from anything but authentic transness. While this form of therapy purports to help transgender youth explore their gender identity, the actual intent is far more sinister. In these sessions, therapists repeatedly explore a seemingly endless list of possible reasons for being transgender, despite lacking evidence for any specific factor causes someone to be trans. Crucially, there's no scenario where being transgender is acknowledged or accepted. Letters endorsing hormone therapy for trans youth are never issued, and often their social transition is not allowed. Instead, the therapy aims to psychologically manipulate teenagers, sometimes for years, until they abandon their pursuit of transitioning. This stance is further highlighted by several practitioners who assert that transgender individuals shouldn't be allowed to transition until the age of 25. They want kids to die. They say they want to protect kids, but they want kids to die. They want trans kids to die, specifically. Because they want trans kids, instead of trans kids being allowed to go through the puberty that they want to go through, and experiencing that and having natural growth in their body that fits their brain and makes them feel good, right? Because it's harder to tell, right? This is going to be the we can always tell crowd. They want to be able to clock you. They want to be able to know so that they can more easily discriminate against you, so they don't get trapped, right? You know, you're going to hear that fucking slur thrown around. But like, I fucking loathe that word being used to describe any kind of like feminine man or transgender woman, because it leads into that, like, it is still legal in a lot of places to use the defense of they were trans. Like, I didn't know they were trans, and we went to go have sex, and I found out that she was trans, and I fucking killed her, and that's a legal defense you can use, and it's okay, and you can get off with it. Like, that's fucking crazy. Yeah, it's for me, but not for thee. We want to protect kids, but only the ones we deem acceptable by our standards. They want to protect cis kids. And they don't even really want to protect cis kids. They want more cis kids to exist so they can put them into work in their factories. They want more cis babies to be born so that there can be more people to exploit. The trans kids won't conform and become good little cogs for the system. Gotta pull the weeds that won't be subservient to the upper class. Exactly. Like, literally, yes. You are getting it. You're getting it with your big brain. The Gender Exploratory Therapy Association frequently denies that it engages in conversion therapy. They assert that their therapeutic approach is neutral in nature and does not prejudge outcomes. Yet this association opposes bans on conversion therapy, submits public comments in favor of blocking Title IX protections against gender discrimination for trans students, and its official account has been observed endorsing tweets like "trans healthcare is the latest in a long line of medical fads." Such actions hardly mirror the claims of a neutral, non-prejudiced entity or neutral approach. The Trump HHS report will undoubtedly face withering scrutiny in the weeks and months ahead. Similar documents have already been dismantled by leading medical institutions, including the Yale Integrity Project, for their distortions and bad faith science. While this fact check is not exhaustive, it exposes several of the report's most dangerous falsehoods and pseudoscientific claims. For those continuing to track its fallout, I'll be cataloging the additional errors and misrepresentations in an ongoing thread on Blue Sky. So if you want to learn more, you can go to the Erin in the Morning Blue Sky account. Please go check her out. Please support Erin. She's doing incredible work keeping information, about this stuff free and open to access.